Save the Caps is the new call to action in North American soccer. What's behind the stadium boom in MLS Next Pro? And Swiss football fans tell LAFC to F off. That and more on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, the show that dots the map of the ever-changing American soccer landscape. How you feeling? My name's Robert Kerr, local soccer guy, and to my side, radio soccer guy, one and only Jason Davis.
Good morning. I'm feeling like this is going to be a weird one. I'm really excited for this show, though. I know we've got some not so fun topics to get into, and just a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of our vibes on a Wednesday, Rob. But I think this is going to be good, and this is why we're here, right? To dive into these topics in particular.
Yeah, it sure is. But hopefully, we bring the fun to some heavier, somewhat technical topics. But we must say hello to the ultras supporting the show. Mr. Bob checking in, gifting memberships left and right. Get in on that. Since we're talking about memberships, that is the best way to support this show. Just a couple bucks a month gets you priority commenting on the screen during these live shows, gets you access to bonus content, as well as access to the Morning Kickaround Discord server. A great place. Soccer community threads from local soccer stuff happening in our backyards all the way up the ladder to the national teams and beyond. So be sure to support. Well over 200 folks in the group and growing every single day. So thank you to Mr. Bob and all those checking in this morning here early on a Wednesday.
Yeah, I want to shout out everybody who supports the show. Thank you so much. I see Mr. Bob is trying to get name, location, so we can build the community and dot our map and all of those things. That's always fun. I was going to say maybe we should. I see that Chris is saying he's got his coffee. How much caffeine have you consumed today? Maybe put that in the chat. Let us know how many milligrams or whatever. How do you measure coffee or caffeine? I don't know. Is it what's how do you measure? It's on the it's on like the can when you drink the energy drink. It says like 2,000 whatever. And it's like, oh damn.
How jittery are you? Are you at normal levels or are you shaking like this? And when your hands are spilling your coffee cup, maybe you've had too much.
Yeah. Maybe you have. But again, thank you for being here. Whatever your caffeine level is today. I want to encourage everybody, jump in the chat. Obviously, as Rob told you, if you're an ultra, you get priority commenting. I was just checking the leaderboard over on the YouTube channel. Our top fans, Rob, I don't have the image ready to go, but Chris is number one right now with 75 XP, then Tim, then Mr. Bob, then Shrimper Steve, who's in the building. Shout out to Shrimper Steve. I believe that's what's his club?
South End.
I'm not Shrimper Steve. I apologize if that's offensive, but we're just having fun. He's in there as well. They're in a battle for promotion. Am I wrong about that? What's going on with South End?
Give us the update. Big Shrimp. Shrimper Steve representing. My dad had a laugh at your pronunciation of South End on the show. Clearly,
I wasn't saying it as someone from that place. I was just doing it the way I would normally do it. I don't say all those weird French English hybrid things you guys have in Michigan the right way either. So it is what it is.
We pick and choose our battles on pronunciations, and those familiar with the show, I definitely pick my own pronunciations when it tries to attempt screen names on here.
Okay.
But before we get into our topics, we should have our own call to action. There is a chance to win tickets to May 9th's game, Rhode Island FC taking on the Tampa Bay Rowdies, Blackstone Valley Tourism Council. There's 4 tickets available this week and another 4 tickets next week. Head over to the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council's Instagram, and you can follow the directions to win 4 tickets to May 9th's game. And then we'd love to say hello and hang out with you as well if you win those tickets.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Obviously, it's Blackstone Valley's Tourism Council that's bringing us out. They're the ones that are highlighting their soccer history and obviously doing it through Morning Kickaround, and we are thrilled. We had meetings yesterday to get ourselves ready for this, right? To plan all the details on the ground. It's Tour Blackstone on Instagram. Obviously, you should be following Morning Kickaround, which is M Kickaround on there as well. And then you can find that. Again, if you're going to be in the area and you want to come into, do you want to come to the game and be part of the show and all that stuff, we can hook you up with tickets through that contest.
Yeah, actually, it looks like there's going to be some Open Cup action involving Rhode Island FC as well. And unfortunately, update from Shrimper Steve, they lost. They lost last night. No promotion.
Sorry. So sorry for Southend to have missed out on promotion this season. Maybe next year, Steve. There's always next year.
Yep. We covered memberships. Another way to support the show, you could go to ko-fi.com /morning kickaround is a way to donate to the show as well. But an even easier way to do it is hit the thumbs up on these videos, or even just do a right click, copy, paste, and share it with a friend that might be interested in American soccer talk in the angles and the perspectives we take here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, again, are we your standard mainstream American soccer show? Are we covering the score lines every day? You know, we dive in a little bit. We'll maybe mention some CONCACAF Champions Cup. There was US Open Cup last night, you know, that kind of stuff. Tonight, there's also a bunch of games. We got a couple of lower division sides still fighting in that competition. You know, we're going to talk about results occasionally, but we're also here for the growth of the game, to spotlight stories that don't otherwise get a bunch of attention, to tell you what's going on in some corners of American soccer that don't get the mainstream attention that we think they deserve. So if you like any of that, right, if you are an American soccer booster in the sense that you want American soccer to grow, this is how you do it. Support Morning Kickaround. Support what we're doing.
All right, we're ready to get to the show?
Let's do it.
All right, let's kick off Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Let's go. Just a few years ago, they saved the Crew. Fans pushed back hard on Anthony Precourt and his mission to move the Columbus Crew to Austin, Texas. And the crowd pushed back enough to make it good politics, and they saved the Crew. Well, Northwest Canada, something along those lines is happening, and Save the Caps is the new rallying call for Major League Soccer fans.
Yeah, look, lots of people know what's going on here, that the Vancouver Whitecaps have a bad stadium situation. I mean, that's whose fault it is a different question, but let's just say it. It's a bad stadium situation, meaning the Whitecaps ownership don't make enough money from game day revenue to compete with the rest of Major League Soccer as salaries go up and as travel costs more because they're doing charter flights everywhere and all these things that come with being a big-time soccer league. And so they're crying poor over this. The organization, the body that actually owns BC Place, the stadium where the Caps play, is government run. I think this is one of a couple of places where that's the case in American soccer, or in North American soccer rather. And in some cases, the team operates the stadium and kind of takes on all the responsibility, even though the stadium is owned by the government. So what's come to the fore now, after a report the other day from Tom Bogert and Paul Tenorio that Major League Soccer's owners have met about the future of the Caps, and that on the table as proposals are a potential move to another city, Vegas being mentioned with their insane investment. I don't think it's tied directly into the Star Vegas plan that we highlighted on our show with the $10 billion and the retractable wall and the basketball arena and all that stuff. I don't think it's necessarily that group. That's the group that might bring the team to Vegas, but they're on the table. Phoenix, which is one of the major markets that Major League Soccer does not have a presence in. And we talked about, I think it's, there's a town there just to the east of Phoenix that maybe wants to build a stadium on an old mall site. So they're in the mix here. Like, this is all coming out. Major League Soccer's owners could make some money off of this because whoever buys the Caps would also have to pay a relocation fee. And certainly some people that are very cynical about the motivations of MLS ownership would say, oh, this is all just about making money. They're going to steal the team from Vancouver. But the latest here involves, again, that stadium relationship, Rob. And we've got from the province up there in Vancouver some quotes from the guy ultimately responsible for the relationship between the government group. What I can't remember. There's a name for it. It's something in the Crown, whatever. You know how Canada's part of the Commonwealth. This is a guy who represents that government body who runs BC Place, talking about what the Caps might need. He says, at this point, we've heard from the Whitecaps that they want their own stadium and they wanted to consider going to the PNE. I think that's what a different place in the area. We've told them we would support them. Obviously, we'd like them to stay in BC Place, but we support them going to the PNE. There's been no proposal for the Whitecaps on them taking over BC Place. We have opened our books to them so they understand the cost to operate the building. They understand the debt servicing. We have millions of dollars we spent to fix the stadium up. They have not proposed that. So this to me, and he does come back around to say that they're very professional over there. Axel Schuster, the people that run the Caps are very professional. But this is basically saying like, all right, you're crying. PNE is the racetrack where they're talking about building the stadium. Thank you to CD Gobjects. You're saying you don't get enough money out of this building to make your organization work in Major League Soccer. All right, fine. You want to take over the building, something that Don Garber suggested when he visited Vancouver a while back? Okay, well then here's what that means. And debt servicing is part of the deal. Do we think this is basically the Whitecaps ownership bluffing a bit and now being called on that bluff?
That's what it seems like on the surface, at least from this reporting. And that would be a real shame if that's the case. It'd be like, we are in an impossible situation. It's no way of coming back from this ever, ever, ever. The other side goes, well, what do you want? And they're like, this is impossible. We can't do anything about this. It seems a little sus there.
Yeah, look at this. So this is further stuff from Ravi Kalan, the Minister of Jobs and Economic Growth. If that's what they're looking for, they need to put a proposal forward that comes with debt servicing. It can't be us investing millions in a roof and fixing the stadium and them saying, oh, okay, we'll take the profits. We need to see what their plan would look like because we don't want to be stuck holding the bag if they were sold. Right? So again, this is like, okay, you want to take over the building? Well, it's not pure profit. You don't just get to use the building for free. If you want to take it over, there is debt on the renovations we've done to make it a proper venue for your soccer team and for other events that needs to be paid. And maybe the Whitecaps would benefit from the monster truck rally that happens at BC Place or the motocross event or whatever it is that pushes playoff games sometimes. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to benefit from those events, well, you've got to pay the debt on this. So that seems to be where we are, Rob.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a mutually beneficial relationship. But at the same time, the fact that this back and forth is happening is progress. For a long time, we heard that like it's in a complete stalemate, right? But that might be progressing because of the reporting that came out earlier in the week that the owners are kind of meeting and whispering about the situation there. And a good note to say it would be just like in the Columbus situation. Vancouver is one of the storied and historical teams in the league. And that would almost be just like, hamstringing the league itself where, in many cities, the MLS team is the fourth or fifth most popular sports entity in there, where in Vancouver, it's in the top two or three, perhaps, probably, obviously the hockey team probably is the monster in that city, but it'd be wild to just undercut the team as well. And in that Athletic article talking about all the leagues that the Vancouver Whitecaps have gone through. So they've like battled through a lot of adversity with the structure around them for decades now. And so hopefully they can figure out this piece of the puzzle.
I mean, it again, I wrote this on the newsletter, Jason Davis, Soccer Eagle. Lots of people have written very good stuff on this. Russ Burdine has a good piece on his Substack about this. Other people have written about this. The problem for Major League Soccer, okay, and it's a problem of their own making, is that they have leaned into this idea of we are here for the fans. We are a league that is about fan culture. Back when MLS didn't have anything else to sell, right? Back when they couldn't say we have great players or we have, famous names or we have glittering stadiums even. Back when that was not a thing, Major League Soccer said, look at our fan passion. Look at the 500 people who show up to make the tifo and light the flares that they're not actually supposed to light, but we're going to highlight them anyway because what makes us look good. Look at how great we are for the passion of the game. Come out and experience that in the building. Again, like if they had the top level quality of soccer to sell, they would have sold that, but they didn't. So what did they say? Come experience the passion of soccer. And now here we are, and the threat is on the table that they're going to steal a team from a group of fans who have been representative of that passion. And I will say this again. Why would you as a fan buy into any club in your town if it can be taken away from you if the stadium deal goes sour? If suddenly the revenue's not there. Now, this is true in other American sports, but we don't have generational fandom to lean into, right? I'm never going to stop being a Denver Broncos fan. My grandfather gave me that. It's just a thing. If they move, I'll hate it. It'll suck. I don't know what'll happen, but I'm never going to stop being a Broncos fan as long as they're there. I'm not going to let the idea that they might steal the team one day from Denver stop me from being a Broncos fan. But if your team in MLS has only been around, and I know the Caps go back to the 70s, so there's some history there. It's a little different, but it's not continuous. Right? We're not talking about like really deep roots in a community that say like, oh, my grandpa took me out. He showed me this team and I fell in love with it. He passed it down to me. And so it kind of, you give yourself over to the team, even with the threat on the table of relocation. If the threat of relocation is on the table for anything that is not part of your identity, why would you give yourself over to it? Why would you buy in? Why would I tell my kid, hey, support this club that I love? If that team can be stolen and in 10 or 15 or 20 years, he's left going, what the hell just happened? Where's my team? They took it from me. Why did you do this to me, Dad? Like that. Now, there is a truth here, right? And this is, again, MLS doing something good that is actually boxing them in. MLS has had fewer relocations than any other U.S. sport by an enormous margin. We have the Quakes going to Houston. Now, it's not relocation, but obviously folding 3 teams is not a great look. Just say that. But in terms of relocation, we've had one, right? It's just the Quakes going to Houston, and then the Quakes, and then the San Jose was given a new team to replace that team that left. That is true. But that's your culture now, right? That's who you are. And so again, you are betraying who you are as a league, as a culture, what you've been selling for the past 30 years. If you say, we can take Vancouver and move them to Phoenix, to move them to Vegas, when that's clearly a move about maximizing your marketing footprint, which runs counter to everything about what sports are supposed to be. I'm not stupid. I'm not naive. I understand that the owners are in this to make money or to improve the value of their franchise. But if you're going to give lip service to the idea that this is supposed to be like every other club in the world, like Liverpool, like Man United, like Southend, well, then you have to follow up. You have to be true to those ideals. You have to do everything you can to make sure the Whitecaps stay in Vancouver.
Yeah, according to this reporting, the Whitecaps have been continuous besides 2 years in Vancouver. So starting in 1974 in the NASL until the folding of that league in 84, 2 years off. And then the Whitecaps returned to this is quite the alphabet soup here. Hang on. The Whitecaps returned to play in 86 in the Canadian Soccer League. And then between 86 and their joining of MLS in 2011, the Whitecaps played in the CSL, the American Pro Soccer League, the United Soccer League, and USSF Division II Pro League. So they've been in the full gamut of alphabet soup over the years.
And again, I want to make sure, I know we need to move on, but I want to make sure it's clear that while we have had relocations and we have sort of let those things be normalized, particularly in other sports, not Major League Soccer, right? Like, for example, Canada's first love is hockey. They've had a number of teams relocate out of Canada in particular over the last 30 years or so. That's always a tragedy. Like, it's always said. I may have liked the fact that Denver had a hockey team, but I hated the fact that Quebec lost theirs so that Denver could have a hockey team. That's ridiculous. That shouldn't be happening. It's the same thing with the Whalers going to Carolina and all these other. It's bad.
I'm curious, this conversation, this is late in the segment to bring this up, but I'm curious if this is a larger thing to try to pull out of Canada, because we're at the point now where companies and MLS are trying to maximize as much money as possible. We know that the taxing situation in Canada is far different than in the United States right now. And then a lot of players and teams want to be in those tax-friendly places like the Floridas and the Texas of the world. Just curious if just the dealing with the international tax and the Canadian tax has anything playing into this.
Well, obviously, your money as a team, your money goes farther when a player isn't paying state income tax, which they wouldn't in Nevada, for example. I think Arizona might be the same because of the number of retirees. I'm not sure about that. I know Florida doesn't have state income tax. Texas doesn't have state income tax. Yeah, those things might be a factor. Like all of it kind of coalesces. But why? But okay. And we will go back to the idea of Vancouver had, you mentioned the history of Vancouver playing in various other leagues. You admitted Vancouver because you were buying into this idea that the Pacific Northwest was a hotbed of soccer with Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver, and it was going to boost the entirety of the league. And now here you are, 15, 20 years on, whatever it is, saying, oh, yeah, we don't need you anymore. Go ahead, move the club. Yep, it doesn't, Again, I understand you need a buyer, and this is the modern world, and you can't operate a community club in Major League Soccer. It's not going to work. But this all sucks.
Yeah, that would be a real shame. It would almost, hamstring them in a moment of strength. You'd think. There's a little bit of time to resolve this. Vancouver Whitecaps' lease goes through the end of the season, so I guess there's not that much time really. But I have a feeling they might extend. But we will keep an eye on this. This is dramatic stuff, really, for especially Whitecaps fans. We'll see if the Save the Caps reaches the same fervor as Save the Crew, and see if similar results, and we'll see what the end game of this is really about. Thank you, MK Ultras. A lot of comments coming in. My guy Luke saying that the Whitecaps are actually the first North American club he ever learned about, because Peter Beardsley played there back in medieval times. That's pretty funny there too. And then definitely follow along, Mr. Bob, encouraging everyone to hit the like button. Doesn't cost you a darn thing, and it helps this show a ton. Support the show in any way you see fit. All right, let's move on to our next topic here on Wednesday's Morning Kickaround. Soccer under construction here on Morning Kickaround. We're turning our focus to MLS Next Pro, and we want to kind of ask the question, what's the deal, or what's the motivation behind a seemingly a developmental league building brand new stadiums? In Mansfield, Texas, North Texas SC is going to be moving into a 7,000-seater new stadium, and AC Grand Rapids on the west side of Michigan in the works of building an 8,500, potentially an expansion for 11,000-person stadium. So what does this mean for the soccer wars if MLS Next Pro is building their own brand new stadiums?
Yeah, I'm not as up on the Mansfield, Texas project as I am on the Grand Rapids project. And we intend to connect directly with AC Grand Rapids in the near future, hopefully getting a major figure from the club on the show. So stay tuned for that. I know that because of our presence in Michigan, thanks to Rob and producer Jenny and Luke and everybody else, that we've got this sense of why the hell would Grand Rapids and the ownership group and the people behind this do MLS Next Pro rather than USL? Because as soccer fans, we see MLS Next Pro as rinky-dink minor league rather than independent. Like whatever the USL is, at least it's independent, right? You're stand on your own 2 feet rather than being like connected
the
directly
AAA.
like basically saying there's a ceiling on what we can be because we're MLS Next Pro, and we'll never be able to say that we're champions of an independent league or whatever that is. I don't know the economics of this, Rob, right? Like clearly there's money here. Why would they do it? Why would they spend $100 million if there wasn't a plan to either make money or find I mean, is this just a real estate play? Like, is that what this is in an MLS Next Pro reserve league flavor rather than the USL flavor?
Well, I know in Grand Rapids, there's a huge construction project and a number of different things. They're building an amphitheater, they're building the stadium, and I think there's some parks and stuff, and like almost reinventing the riverfront in Grand Rapids. So this is one piece in many, like a big play that's been going on for 10, 15, 20 years, and it's being put into action. And I know on the east side of the state, I was keeping an eye on this pretty much since I moved back to the Great Lakes state, and basically in the back of my mind, hoping for a Detroit City versus Grand Rapids cross-state rivalry. That was great stuff back in the NPSL days, but it just seems odd to me that you'd put so much money and effort. Like, is there fandom for a team that seems to have just like a cap set on where they can go immediately?
So I do think, and the chat is very much on this, right? I do think a couple of things are at work here. One of them is that MLS is clearly being aggressive, right? We have Ali Curtis on the record. I think our friend over at the Soccer Business, whose name is Simon Evans, had an interview with Ali Curtis where they talked about building out. They wanted to be 50 teams the next couple of years. Now, a lot of those obviously are MLS reserve teams. They kind of already have that base, and then let's build some independent structures on top of that. And AC Grand Rapids is an example. That Carolina Core is an example of that. I think there's a couple other teams in that mode. And the chat is saying things like, hey, this is going to be more stable than USL. You presume, right? You don't have to worry about MLS Next Pro going belly up overnight. Look, there's clearly more money in the MLS ecosystem than there is in the USL ecosystem. I do think USL has proven itself to be pretty stable from a league perspective over the last decade or so. But it's fair to say that it doesn't have the same sort of strength overall that an MLS would in terms of supporting a lower league. Champ is saying, I am assuming that they think people don't care about the league itself. And we've heard this before. Like, there's research on this. We've had owners in Chattanooga and various places say, our fans do not care. Chattanooga, another independent MLS Next Pro team. Our fans do not care what league we play in. They want, and this goes back to what I was talking about with the Vancouver Whitecaps and the way MLS marketed itself in the late aughts and early teens, which is to say, you come out for the experience. Like, whether that's sort of like a family-friendly focus or more of the intense supporter culture, come out for the experience. Support your local team. Wear with pride the colors and letters of your community. Support your soccer team. Doesn't matter where you play. Now, when ProRel is instituted, if USL gets to that level, we're going to find out for real whether fans in places like Grand Rapids or Chattanooga on the MLS Next Pro side of town or wherever, Carolina, do care about maybe not having access to move up the way, or they see the drama of the USL promotion race or the promotion playoffs or whatever is delivered, and now we wish we had that. Somebody also, I think it was Mike, saying MLS Next Pro easier for slow rollout. They aren't necessarily tied to MLS Next Pro indefinitely. That's a good question about what the agreement looks like, Rob. Like, whether or not AC Grand Rapids or anybody else is locked into MLS Next Pro, or if they are able to say after a while, you know what, this isn't the league for us. We're leaving and we're going to go join USL. Now, I think, the way MLS controls a lot of the aspects of its business, that doesn't sound like something they would want to let happen. So I don't know, but maybe that is a thing.
It could well be. And, I think they've been seeking a path there in Grand Rapids, and maybe this is it. I saw one of the ultras commenting about buy-in. I have heard that MLS Next Pro is a cheaper buy-in than USL, and so that could be a motivation. And then Amway, specifically in Grand Rapids, Amway owns this, and there's like 2 or 3 oligarch type families that own everything out on that side. And I've heard that they have some connections to MLS franchises. I think maybe Orlando or Nashville. And so, yeah, there's some tentacles are spread out in the field. But I really, just my soccer naivete, I really wish that it was a cross-state rivalry within the USL. Other teams. So we talk about North Texas SC, which is MLS Next Pro team. They are going to be the chief inhabitants of Mansfield Stadium in Mansfield, Texas.
Right. Well, but that's FC Dallas's team in MLS Next Pro. They're just branded as North Texas FC. Is that correct? That's my understanding about that.
Correct.
So that's not an independent team. And they're building their own stadium. And again, is that you don't see a lot of MLS teams doing that with their MLS Next Pro entry. I know that San Jose's got the town, and I've heard some people say that that's maybe the worst branding out there. Guitar Yaga, I put up a comment. I want to get to this. My family live in Connecticut. They say they see massively more promotions for Connecticut United than a Hartford Athletic, and Connecticut United make it seem like they are an MLS. I wonder if that's just a funding situation, amount of money available to the team rather than a reflection of the league. But obviously, Connecticut United can slap MLS on their stuff because they are affiliated with MLS. Now, will the fans know the difference? Yeah, fans should know the difference. But maybe they don't care. Maybe being affiliated with MLS is actually a good thing for them in that regard. In a place like Connecticut, when you have an MLS team up the road in Massachusetts and another couple down the road in New York. I don't know if that's better for them.
Yeah, I've heard that too in Grand Rapids, that they're kind of pushing it as MLS, and people aren't quite understanding that it's the league for the B teams. And I'm curious if there's going to be a feeling of bamboozlement when you go to a game. You're like, why does it say Crew 2 on the opponents?
Okay,
and then the realization that they aren't playing.
They canceled the town thing for San Jose Earthquakes too. But this is another thing I wanted to get to, right? So you have these independent entries coming into a couple that exist, and adding more. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's also plans for a Baltimore team and the Cleveland team.
The Baltimore team, I will believe it when I see it. That's DC United involved, and I think is Carmelo Anthony involved somehow. I think there's been some pushback on the location. That's the site, I believe, the site of a golf course that has historically been accessible to the Black community in Baltimore, when obviously that, in a place like Baltimore and lots of places in America, Black people being able to play golf was not a thing. So there's some emotion attached to that location. So we'll see what happens there. That I know that's a plan. Like you said, that's a plan. In fact, it's Jacksonville, Armada, Forest City, which we highlighted on the show with their new badge, Grand Rapids, Golden City out there in San Francisco playing at Kezar Stadium, the Island FC, which we haven't seen branding for yet. We just know the Island. That's the team on Long Island out there. So, and again, is all of this a reflection of MLS really making a go at a lower division and then one day deciding to split things up and do their own pyramid?
I would say it's more likely they're trying to own the sport a la Major League Baseball and own all the different tiers. And it's like, I'd say that is more realistic, to try to own every aspect, because there is a MLS youth pilot program that's popped up in different places in the country. And then they're expanding this lower league, this backup league, and independent teams. Obviously, it would be more fun if there was like a version of Pro Rel, but in my heart of hearts, I do think that they're going to try to go the Major League Baseball or minor league hockey route, where there's all the different tiers of players, and say you do really, really well at AC Grand Rapids and you get moved up to whatever team, probably more pertinent to the North Texas team. You do well there and you go play for the Major League Soccer team.
Well, yeah,
or at the same time, it could be a way to just force USL out. Be like, USL is taking up all these different markets, and they're just trying to get a landmark and a footprint in all these different places.
I mean, again, this is the thing that, as somebody who has no, I have no investment in either one of these groups. I mean, certainly not in terms of money, and emotionally, I'm fairly agnostic. I want to see what's best for the sport of soccer in America, and it's frustrating to imagine that, again, we're in this perpetual soccer wars situation where there's sort of a land grab mentality, or we got to lock down that market before they get their hooks in it, and all those things. And I don't know, again, we keep cannibalizing ourselves. I mean, that's what cannibalizing is. And we keep doing things that I don't think benefit the game in the bigger sense, but it's always hard to say, hey, business, stop trying to grow, because that's not good for soccer, right? This idea, and I know, I know we've got people that watch our show that are very anti-MLS for this very reason, that they think of MLS as a business that's trying to voraciously eat up every aspect of soccer rather than do what they presume would benefit the game in better ways, right? And I do have sympathy for that attitude. Again, the problem is, of course, that issue of how do you tell a business not to grow? I think what works in a lot of places around the world, more established soccer cultures, domestically speaking, with their club game, is everybody kind of does think of this as like, well, I can't really rock the boat too much. It's already on the water. Like, it's already there. It's that somebody built that 100 years ago. How am I going to come in and fundamentally undermine something that's been around for 100 years? Right. Even though in this moment in American sports, we are messing with all these old structures and these old relationships, there's still that attitude prevails in Europe, especially. In this country, we don't have that. Everybody thinks, oh, nothing's really established yet. I'll start something new. And instead of getting up ahead of steam and all moving in the same general direction, we're all just kind of trying to cut each other off all the time. And it's maddening. But again, I don't know what you might say, U.S. soccer, where are you? Why aren't you putting your foot down on this thing or that thing? Again, U.S. soccer does anything to undermine the competition, and they get sued for that because those are the laws we have on the books. So, man, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see how this all plays out, but this definitely feels like pieces in a very long game. And, I guess I like the fact that there's plans for soccer and pro soccer to hang around in the United States for a long time to come, but we shall see how it all plays out. We try to ride the fence a little bit on the show, not be too partial, but one of my favorite quotes from a guest on the show, the boss of AV Alta, saying, there's a rallying cry out there where nobody's farm team, which I always kind of enjoy.
Right. Yes. Right. I do think that's you're going to see that dynamic happen, right? That dichotomy exist, whether it bubbles up to be a big enough sort of movement to break through into anything that could be construed as mainstream discussion, I don't know. But certainly among fans, I know it happens in Chattanooga. Like, it's already happening in Chattanooga. It's right there. It's in evidence with a team in the USL and a team in MLS Next Pro. So, of course, if you're a fan of a USL team, you're going to say you're a minor league outfit, MLS Next Pro independent team down the road or whatever. Whereas we are legitimately independent. Now, nobody is independent in the way that, say, South End United or whatever is independent, right? The way that those clubs sort of exist culturally in a place like that in England and work their way through and try to go from a non-league club back to the football league and all those is that ever going to happen for us? Or is it always going to be some corporate office dictating terms when it comes to how any potential promotion relegation pyramid or, independent movement actually works?
We shall see. We shall see. Thank you, everyone, for getting into the comments here. Lots of good stuff. People definitely having their say on this topic. And before we move on, go to Blackstone Valley Tourism Council on Instagram and enter to win 4 tickets to Rhode Island FC taking on the Tampa Bay Rowdies May 9th. We'll be out there doing our college game day style show, and you can get in there with 4 tickets, giving them away on Friday. They've got some instructions on the Instagram, answering a question, following, and all that stuff. Be giving away the tickets on Friday, and then another 4 next Friday as well, while we are out there in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. All right, stick with us. We got more to talk about here on Wednesday. Just who is telling LAFC to F off? Find out next here on Morning Kickaround. Grasshopper Club Zurich are telling LAFC to F off. The most successful team in Switzerland with 27 titles is currently in a relegation scrap for the second year in a row after being bought by LAFC in 2024, and fans having massive protests telling the American ownership to get out of town.
Can we discuss something as a matter of housekeeping on Morning Kickaround? Where do we stand on the F-bomb on this show? Are we anti-F-bomb? Rob, you censored yourself, which I appreciate. Again, as a dad, it kind of comes naturally that sometimes you got to censor yourself. But
Yeah.
I'm curious because I have the image. Now, this video's been bouncing around. People may have already seen it, but I have the image, and I don't know. Like, am I going to scandalize our viewers, our ultras, if I throw up the image of this banner that you're referencing that the Grasshopper fans displayed in their stadium?
Are you asking me or are you asking the viewership? Because in my opinion, I think it's been natural. It's like we use curse words every now and again, but we don't like go hard on them by any means. I'm not going to tell you not to put that up. And here it is. That is the chant there in Zurich, Switzerland. The Grasshoppers fans not happy at all with how this team is running. And interestingly enough, per reporting in The Athletic, LAFC are saying like, hey, I think we might just have to sell.
Yeah, obviously this is a reaction to where a very proud club with a lot of history in that country is right now. What, 11th out of 12th as the
Yeah.
season gets ready to wind down? On one hand, let's absolutely criticize LAFC for letting it get to this point. Like, what did you do when you took this over? What did you think was going to happen, LAFC, when you bought this club? They're not the only ones, by the way, with them, an MLS club to buy another team in an effort to use it as an outpost for developing players or something like that. There's what Chicago Fire and Joe Mansueto. They bought a club in Switzerland as well. I want to say is it Lugano? FC Lugano? Is that the one?
I don't know off the
So,
top of my head, but I do know that they have one over there.
okay, so I believe that's the case. So why Switzerland is an interesting question.
Well, that's like right on the doorstep of the top five. It's like the proving grounds. I mean, lots of players come through Switzerland that make it to the highest heights. I mean, Mo Salah played there. Erling Haaland played in that league. There's countless. It's right there. It's it's top five adjacent.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's location. I'm sure there's some, knowing Switzerland and some of the other banking things they're known for, maybe it's more open to this idea than a lot of other European locales would be. As I said, criticize LAFC for getting it to this point. And we would have to lean into a Swiss football expert to kind of understand why Grasshopper has drifted down the table so much and become this moment a team that these fans were protesting in the first half and then displaying this banner in the second half. And I'll take it off the screen just to kind of clear the palette. But criticize them for what? But at this, and I know, like, what I'm trying not to do is give them too much credit for saying, yeah, maybe we should sell. Yeah, those fans are upset. Yeah, maybe we should sell. I mean, it could be as simple as it has become untenable for LAFC to own the club from a business perspective. And this is just a smart business decision. And it's got nothing to do with LAFC doing the right thing by the fans, right? It could be that. The statement from LAFC said, recent protests have called for us to leave the club. We wish to state clearly that we are open to discussions regarding a partial or full sale of the club, provided it secures the club's long-term sustainability. So again, they can kind of posture and say, yeah, okay, we hear you. But again, it's also probably about, well, this isn't paying off for us, right? That's maybe they're doing because of look where the club is in terms of the standings, but it's just not paying off.
Yeah, the statement continues to say that financial reality remains that Grasshopper's running costs continue to exceed its current revenues, and the club depends on ongoing external support to compete in professional football. So maybe that angst continues. Maybe they've stripped. This is me, kind of going on a limb here. Maybe they haven't been investing in the players or the on-field product like they had in the past. Obviously, they've been in the relegation scrap here this year and last. And so the LAFC ownership are going at it from a bean counter perspective and trying to make a Swiss club a business when maybe it was kind of a plaything or something that wasn't necessarily meant to be a money-making venture for ownerships in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I need to go back and review the origins of this, why LAFC decided to do this in the first place, how they positioned this, why they thought this was a good idea. But maybe they bit off more than they could chew, right? Again, they're saying, well, the club loses money, and without us putting in our own money, the club's not sustainable. It doesn't operate. It wouldn't operate, right? And that is, it's not LAFC's fault that the economics of football are difficult beyond maybe the way that they run the club, right? They share a publicly owned stadium with FC Zurich. If they're not controlling all the revenues, very much like we talked about with the Whitecaps today, there could be some significant problems in terms of funding the club at a level that would allow them to be competitive the way that they have been in the past. I mean, if you talk to people who run European football clubs outside of England, they tell you this thing is really hard. The money situation is almost impossible. If we're not developing players and selling them for tens of millions of euros every year, we can't. It doesn't work. The economic model doesn't work, which means, and maybe this is a reality Grasshopper fans don't want to accept, which means that some clubs have to kind of accept their place. Their role is, we're always going to be also rans who maybe develop a player or two and sell them. The best you can hope for, and I think this is also calcifying in American soccer a little bit in MLS, the best you can hope for is, we're going to put some young players on the field and they're going to be really cool for a little while, and then they're going to be sold and we start over. And that means you're very unlikely to bring home a trophy. That's just the way it is, because we're not spending at the level of the big clubs who may have owners who are willing to put their own money in to make it all work. And that's clearly not where LAFC is.
Interesting difference between these Zurich Grasshopper fans and Liverpool. There was fan protests in Liverpool over the weekend. The fans gave ownership a yellow card, called them bastards in a chant and various sort of things. So it's being felt there as well. Maybe different dynamics, but the language difference. I mean, yellow card is a lot softer than F off, right?
Yeah, it's a little softer. Yeah, it's
A little bit.
I'm assuming a lot of Swiss people speak English, right? Because that's just where we are in history, is that English has become a lingua franca, and lots of people in Europe learn it. They've also posted their statement, by the way, LAFC did, on the website in German. So that would be the language there in Zurich that would be dominant, I presume. I would have liked this in multiple languages, maybe. Could, give us a little culture. Also, like, I guess, respect for knowing how to properly say F off in English in a banner to the Zurich fan, or to the Grasshopper fans.
Yeah, so you want like the multilingual. You get the English, you get it in German, you get it in French. You cover all the bases. Sure. Equal opportunity, profanity from the fans. But curious, it brings up the question. So if every league, basically outside of the ones that have the big TV contracts, that the top in the European leagues, and obviously the Premier League with their monster advantage with TV deals, what's more likely to happen, that clubs across Europe and the world shut down, or like player contracts get smaller and smaller and smaller? And like, will we see a contraction or just like shuttering? And those are dark thoughts to think, but that might be where we're going.
And again, like, we've had some cautionary tales over the last 20 years or so, clubs sliding all the way down in places where you can do that, right? Slide all the way down the pyramid. Rangers had to start over because their business entity got wound up and they had to try again. And they carry the name. It's the same club in everybody's estimation, but the actual business behind it changed. I know, I just saw that Portsmouth is back in the championship and doing relatively well in terms of their sustainability, right? They're 16th, or they were 16th last year. I don't know where they are this year, Portsmouth. But that's a club that was nearly shut down, like completely shut down, Portsmouth. So to have them even back in the second division, which is kind of their natural place based on the size of the club, is something of an achievement. And it's sad to even think that it had to get to this place, right? Like somebody came in, made a bunch of promises, took over a lot of the club's shares, ran it in the ground, scurried off into the night. The fans are left there to pick up the pieces and go, what the hell now? Right? The club gets wound up. We're shutting down. What do we do here? You've got to figure out if you can start over, if you can save that version of the club so you don't get sent all the way down the pyramid. Like those things, man. Like that's something I think we're probably going to see a little bit more of in the very near future as the economics of the game continue to shift in certain directions.
And in in other places, they don't view clubs necessarily 100% as a profit-making entity. And so if Daddy Warbucks ownership, so an example of like someone that was willing to put in their own money and just have it as an entity of their own, not necessarily a profit generator, is Leicester City. They are in a hard place, and a lot of that, obviously, the owner died, and that had an impact. But the money behind Leicester City back when they were in their heyday was King Power, which was Thailand's biggest duty-free, and they had like a monopoly on the stores in Thailand's airports. But what happened in COVID? People stopped traveling, and I guess from what I understand, traveling really hasn't picked back up since then. And so the money available to the soccer team because of the ownership on the other side of the world, the money isn't coming in at the same level, is interesting. And how many entities are willing to buy into soccer for just funsies and not necessarily as a profit engine.
Well, that's the thing. Like, and again, if it was, all of these clubs are community assets that should be run at net zero, right? That's the ideal world, that every team is run. And look, I think a lot of owners do buy in knowing they're going to lose money, and that's okay because they're Roman Abramovich and they just want to be attached and they want the sports washing element of it. Or they see the potential for equity in Major League Soccer. That's what they're selling right now. They're selling to owners of the league. And this is why it's interesting the Caps can't get an ownership group to step in, because their stadium situation is so much that it's a drain on the year-to-year operations, and that's not going to be made up for by the improvement in the value of the club through the general growth of Major League Soccer, which has been the case over the last couple of years when we have LAFC and Inter Miami valued at over $1 billion, despite having very small revenues relative to clubs like Inter Milan, who's in the same neighborhood of valuation. Right? The ideal would be these are all basically not nonprofits or not for profits, right? They are run to be at zero. We're just trying to put a team on the field and represent the community, but that horse is out of the barn. Like, we're not going back to a day when we're doing that and clubs can compete with one another in legitimate ways, right? If you don't have big money behind you, or in the case, I mean, obviously there are rules now that restrict whether new money can really make an impact, say like Newcastle being an example of this, right? Saudi investment, lots of money coming in, but can they spend it if their revenue doesn't meet the requirements for PSR and now the new rules and things like that? Those things are restrictions on that juice of new money, but that's really what people have been left with. I hope we get bought by a petrostate. I hope we get institutional money comes in and helps us compete with Manchester City and PSG on the continent. Like, that's where we are now, and that sucks. And again, as I was talking about in my article or my piece on my newsletter about Vancouver and the potential relocation of the Caps, part of the reason, even though there are some problematic elements of the way USL operates, part of the reason people are going to turn to smaller clubs. Now, if you live in a big city and you don't have a smaller club, I don't know what you do. I guess you have to range a little bit. But if you are in a regional situation and there's an MLS team in your region and you're watching what's happening with the Caps and you're seeing how money is ultimately the end game, why wouldn't you support your local second division or third division team instead? I mean, even if you understand that the people in charge of those teams maybe aren't any different fundamentally from the people who own MLS clubs, at least like the operating costs are so much smaller that there's going to be a greater level of accessibility. It's going to feel more connected to the community than some glitzy, glamorous, corporately run thing that's trying to squeeze hundreds of millions of dollars out of value rather than just trying to make payroll so they can, keep the team alive for next year.
Yeah, we'll see how this one goes, but some long game discussion here on Morning Kick Around. Thank you for all your comments. Great stuff in the chat. Been really popping in the chat today. And stick around. We got one more segment. We'll talk a little Open Cup, maybe a couple news and notes to wrap up the show. Stick with us here on Morning Kick Around. All right, welcome back in Wednesday's edition of Morning Kicker, and I'm Rob. He's Jason. Jason, what do you want to go to first? We have a new peak at one of the stadiums being built here in the United States, but we also have the round of 16 of the U.S. Open Cup. Where do we want to go to now?
Okay, let's do. Well, we have a couple games. Well, we had one game last night in the Open Cup, right? Just one, and then we have a bunch of games tonight. Or
two games last night. Charlotte fell to Atlanta United, and San Jose overcame Minnesota. And then tonight, New York Derby in the Open Cup. Red Bulls versus NYCFC. And then we have a clash with between leagues with Columbus and one Knoxville. One Knoxville already taking down, was it DC United in the round of 32. And then I alluded to this at the top of the show. It's going to be in Pawtucket, but none of Rhode Island FC is not involved. New England and Orlando at Centerville Bank Stadium. And in Chicago and St. Louis, the Midwest rivalry. That's like the Cubbies versus the Reds transferred into soccer venue. Then we have Houston taking on Louisville City, one of the strongest teams in America's second division, taking on one of the maybe not best form MLS sides. And then rounding off tonight's schedule, Colorado hosting Colorado Springs Switchbacks. So there is a few lower league teams still involved. One third division team. And one
obviously, we are fascinated with the idea of cup sets. Got to say the word. I don't think we're legally obligated to say cup set when we talk about any knockout tournament. I'm not overly interested in the Hudson River Derby Open Cup match. I expect it will be an extremely small crowd at Sports Illustrated Stadium there in New Jersey for that game.
What do you think? Like 300 to 900 people out there? Maybe there might be some traveling NYCFC people.
See how my head went down? Maybe you made me so sad. You made me so sad. No, I a couple thousand, I hope, at least, maybe South Ward making some noise. Maybe we'll see the kids, we'll see if the kids get a chance to play. Columbus, Knoxville. Well, Knoxville is cool. Obviously that's tough because when Knoxville has to go to Columbus, they did win in DC. Can they do it again in Columbus? So we certainly be rooting for them.
Check out what's on the screen.
There will be 0 Knoxville in the next round because one Knoxville will. Thank you, Luke. That's very clever.
We need the sound effect.
Yeah, we don't have a rim shot to give you if that was what you were looking for, Luke. We didn't get you that one. All right. Houston and Louisville. Let's see if Louisville. I'm rooting for Louisville too. Obviously, that's a very good, normally speaking, USL championship side. They're always in the mix for titles. They have a hope, I think, of beating Houston in Houston. I don't expect that'll be a big crowd there for the Dynamo at Shell Energy Stadium either. And then I think the Switchbacks could go up the road to Dick's Sporting Goods Park and win. I like that Colorado Derby element of that. Colorado Springs and Denver are very different places, but it's not too far of a trip. So I think we might. I'm going to say we're going to get at least one cup set tonight, Rob. I don't know if I want to commit to which one it's going to be, but I do think we can get one.
So there's the opportunity for 1, 2, 3. Opportunity for 3 cup sets, and you're saying a 1 out of 3. That ain't bad. It would be wild if it was one Knoxville, seeing as how they are in the 3rd division of American soccer. So that would quote unquote be the biggest cup set of the bunch. But you've been right with the Switchbacks so far. I think you predicted was it the Switchbacks who took down SKC?
Yeah, well, SKC is the worst MLS team anybody has ever seen ever, for the most part. I mean, that's probably not true, but modern times, certainly they're terrible. So it wasn't a big stretch to pick Colorado Springs to beat Sporting Kansas City. The Rapids are much better than Sporting. I'm not saying they're great, and I don't know what kind of lineup Matt Wells will throw out there. Now he is an Englishman, so I'm sure he's going to have some respect for a cup tournament. So maybe we'll get a pretty strong Rapids team, which could be a problem for the Switchbacks.
Yeah, it could well be. We shall see what happens, but you can take in these games on a variety of platforms between YouTube and Paramount, so we can watch our eldest domestic cup competition tonight. 6 games on the docket, and we hit an hour here today. Do we want to look at DCFC, or we want to save that for Friday?
Let's tease it. Why not? We've hit our hour. We want to encourage people to come back on Friday. Friday will also be a dot the map situation. I know we've got some new people that have jumped into the Discord. By the way, if you need the Discord, I forgot to post it on Monday. I'll do it again. I'll post the Discord link on the channel for you. Yeah, look, if you're not an ultra yet, join up, become an ultra. Thank you very much for watching. Spread the word, right? We need people to do that. Get your friends on board. This is a unique little club. I think this is a pretty special thing that we're doing here at Morning Kickaround. Again, getting ready for our trip up to Pawtucket and everything. So we need your support.
Yeah, so one last plug there. Head on over to the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council's Instagram page to enter into the contest to win 4 tickets to Rhode Island FC and the Tampa Bay Rowdies on May 9th. Would love it if, we want everyone to win tickets and be out there, but hopefully some MK Ultras can get in on that and get 4 tickets courtesy of Blackstone Valley Tourism Council. Do want to shout out our newest members as well. Beaver Mug, Edward, Michelle 438, Santana Hernandez, Andrew Snow, Maestro Chiquetas, Becco TV1, Rich Bammon 7612, SS Ships and Dip. I like that one. Anthony 8810 and Silent Roving Win. Welcome aboard. Thank you for supporting. Thank you to our MK Ultras who brought in who purchased the gift memberships for our folks who joined in. So hope to see all these new dots in the Morning Kickaround Discord server so we can put you on our map on Friday's show.
Yes, let me also add, I believe I will be receiving the new first edition Morning Kickaround jerseys today.
Eh?
I believe they will be arriving today. Obviously, we'll have to get them together to get them shipped out to everybody that has purchased a Morning Kickaround jersey. I will post images. You'll see all of those things. So get very excited for that. The jerseys are in. You can still go buy a jersey. This is just the first run. We want to do several runs, thousands of runs if possible. So go over to Morning Kickaround on Fourth Wall. You're going to have to do a little searching. Our YouTube channel is not connecting with Fourth Wall right now, but Fourth Wall is where our shop lives. Morning-Kickaround. Rob, can you get the address? Is it possible that you can
Yeah, I'll do so.
All right. Anyway, it's over there on Fourth Wall. Rob's going to try to do his best to get the right URL for the Fourth Wall. Is it defeating you? Is the finding the fourth? Is it not working?
Right. I got it. Here we go. I'm going to put it into the chat now. It is morning-kickaround-shop.fourthwall.com. Rolls off.
There you go. There you go. You can also get your hands on many another product, including the Clank the Clanger t-shirt, which I think is a big hit. We've got some Dot the Map gear. We've got the standard Morning Kickaround shirt rather, and the sweatshirt, the crew or the hoodless sweatshirt. We also have the Mr. Bob mug, which Rob just modeled for you there. Shout out to Mr. Bob and all of his support. If we put together a leaderboard of contributions to the to Morning Kickaround, support for Morning Kickaround, I know Mr. Bob would be at the top of that list. So we very much appreciate Mr. Bob. Be like Mr. Bob.
I really hope to see MK Ultras in New England, in Rhode Island, rocking the kits. I can't wait to put that on for the very first time and show that off. So we will be back on Friday, same place, same time. And so then, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.